I thought the worst thing she could do was cheat, until I found out who he really was, and how far he'd already gone. Hey everyone, welcome back and thanks for being here again. Before I dive into today's story, I have a little announcement I'm excited to share. I've started a new YouTube channel called Soulfelt Chronicles, where I'll be posting more of these raw, heartfelt stories that mean a lot to me. If you've been moved by anything I've shared here, I'd really appreciate it if you could check out the channel, give it a like, and hit that subscribe button. The link's down in the description. Alright, let's get into it. That night, I made a choice, not because I was emotionally prepared for what it might mean, but because I simply couldn't keep pretending. The weight of the lies had become too much. It didn't start with anything dramatic. It was the little things at first, tiny shifts that might have seemed meaningless to anyone else. My wife, Rachel, had always been predictable when it came to her routine. She'd be home at the same time every evening without fail. But then, suddenly she started working late more often. At first, I didn't think much of it. Work gets busy, right? But then came the mentions of new people, friends I'd never heard of before. Out of nowhere, these folks became central to her life, and I couldn't help but wonder why she'd never brought them up before. But it was her eyes that told me something deeper was going on. There was a chill in them that hadn't been there before, like the warmth I'd always seen had been replaced with something distant, unreachable. She started giving me these curt, half-hearted answers. And she treated that thing. I wanted to ask. Rachel said she was going. I sat. And what I saw made my stomach drop. She wasn't where she said she'd be. Instead of the restaurant she mentioned, the app showed Rachel across town, at a bar with a reputation. One of those places known for low lighting, shadowed corners, and booths that seemed made for secrecy. My chest tightened and my thoughts started spinning out of control. Was she with someone? Who was he? What did he mean to her? My hands started shaking as I stared at the little blinking red dot on my screen, taunting me with its silent betrayal. It confirmed everything I'd been trying so hard not to believe. I could have jumped in the car right then, could have stormed into that bar and demanded answers in front of whoever she was with. But instead, something shifted in me. I took a breath, steadying myself, and decided to do something she'd never expect. Something that would say everything I couldn't find the strength to say out loud. I walked into our bedroom, opened the drawer where I kept a few things from years past, and took out the engagement ring I had given her. Back then, it had meant everything, promises of loyalty, love, and a future built on trust. Now I felt hollow. A cruel reminder of a bond she'd already broken. I placed the ring gently inside a small velvet box. Then I wrote a note, simple and quiet, just 5 words, I hope he's worth it. With a strange kind of calm, I picked up the phone and called a courier service. I gave them the address of the bar and asked that the package be delivered directly to Rachel. The person on the line didn't ask any questions and I didn't offer any. As soon as I hung up, a rush of adrenaline shot through me. I couldn't tell if I was furious, shattered, or just completely numb. So I waited. The silence inside the house was crushing. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, every creak in the floor, every car passing outside made me jump. I couldn't tear my eyes away from my phone, waiting for something, anything, to break the unbearable quiet. And then, finally, it buzzed. It was a text from Rachel. What is this? Why would you do this? Call me. Her words came off frantic, desperate, like she was trying to pull the pieces back together before I could let them fall apart. But I didn't answer. In my mind, I pictured her sitting at that bar, this mystery man beside her, opening that little box and reading my note. I could almost see the way her breath would catch in her throat, her cheeks flushing. Whether from embarrassment, regret, or maybe just anger, I didn't know. A few moments later, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. And for a split second, I nearly picked it up. I almost gave in to the part of me that still wanted to understand, to hear what excuse she'd come up with, to listen to her voice, even if it was just to lie again. But something inside me said no. I let the phone ring until it went silent on its own. Not even a minute passed before another call came through, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Is this Jake? A man's voice asked. His tone was smooth, almost smug, like he was enjoying himself. Who wants to know? I shot back sharper than I meant to. This is Brandon, he replied. I believe you sent something to Rachel tonight. Maybe we can talk about this like adults. And there it was. The name. Brandon, the man she'd been hiding, the one who had taken my place in her world. Hearing his voice hit me like a punch to the gut. My blood simmered, but I swallowed the anger and tried to stay level. There's nothing to talk about, I said, keeping my voice as cold as I could manage. You two made your choices. Now live with them. He let out a short, mocking laugh. low and patronizing, the kind of sound that made my skin crawl. "You think sending a little box with a ring is going to change anything?" he said. "Rachel and I are happy. You're just—" I hung up before he could finish whatever twisted thing he had to say. I wasn't going to sit there and let him dig the knife in any deeper. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. A few minutes later, the sound of screeching tires pierced the night. I moved to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to see Rachel's car pull sharply into the driveway. She slammed the door with a force that echoed across the front yard and stormed up to the house. The door burst open. There she stood, flushed, furious, her eyes burning with intensity. In one hand she clutched the little box. The engagement ring shimmered faintly under the hallway light. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice tight and shaking with a mix of rage and desperation. I didn't say a word right away. I let the silence sit between us, heavy and undeniable. For once I didn't shrink back. I didn't hesitate. "You tell me," I said finally, my voice steady and quiet. "What does that ring mean to you now? What does our marriage mean to you?" She faltered. Just for a second, her expression shifted, anger giving way to something closer to fear or regret. But then she snapped back, her defenses rising like a wall. "You're being ridiculous," she spat. "Brandon is just a friend. You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "Am I?" I asked, stepping toward her. "Because from where I'm standing, friends don't meet up at secret bars and hide it from their husbands. I don't think real friends laugh behind their friends' husbands' back," I said, my voice low but cutting. Her face went pale, the color draining out as my words hit her. For a second I thought she might actually cry. But instead of breaking down, she did what she always did, she turned it around on me. "You're acting completely unhinged," she snapped. "Spying on me? Sending that box in public? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was?" "Good," I said, my voice finally rising, the dam breaking. "Then maybe now you understand how it feels. Every time you lied to me. Every time you looked straight into my eyes and pretended nothing was wrong. That's what humiliation feels like, Rachel." She just stood there, staring at me, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to find something, anything, to say that might justify what she'd done. But there was nothing. No explanation could make this right. And then, just when I thought maybe she'd run out of ways to hurt me, she looked me dead in the eye and said it. "You're pathetic, Jake," she sneered. "I deserve better than this. Better than you." Her words hit me hard, sharper than any slap, but instead of falling apart, something inside me shifted. I straightened my back and took a deep breath, letting her insult turn into fuel. "Then pack your things," I said, calm and clear. "Go find whatever it is you think you deserve. Because after tonight, you'll never have to settle for me again." I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there speechless in the hallway, clutching that little velvet box like it meant something now. But this wasn't the end. If anything, what happened next showed me just how deep betrayal could go, deeper than I had ever imagined. I climbed the stairs, needing space, distance from the poison she had just spewed. My heart was racing, my mind spinning, but somewhere beneath all the noise I felt something else. Clarity. Cold, quiet clarity. Her words, as cruel as they were, had given me the final push I needed. There was no fixing this. No mending what had already been broken too many times. I stepped into our bedroom, shut the door behind me, and leaned against it for a moment, collecting myself. Then I reached for my laptop on the nightstand. If Rachel wanted to call me pathetic, fine. But she had no idea just how precise, how methodical, I could be when pushed. Over the past few weeks, as my gut kept whispering that something wasn't right, I hadn't just sat back and waited. I had quietly started collecting everything, small pieces here and there, long before tonight exploded the way it did. Phone records, credit card charges, odd changes in her schedule. Alone, none of it screamed betrayal. But when you lined it all up, the pattern was clear. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. But now it was time to put it all together. I sat down and opened her phone records first. It didn't take long. Right there, clear as day, was that same unknown number popping up over and over again across the last few months. Dozens of texts, calls at strange hours. Middle of the night. Early morning. Always him. Brandon. It had to be. That alone was enough to twist my stomach, but I wasn't done yet. Next, I opened her email. Rachel had been careless, maybe even overconfident. She'd left her personal email logged in on our shared laptop. My hands trembled as I clicked through her inbox, searching for something, anything, that confirmed what my gut had been screaming for weeks. And then I saw it. An email from him sent just 2 days ago. The subject line read, "Can't wait to see you Friday night." I hesitated, already knowing what I'd find inside, but I clicked it open anyway. The message was everything I feared and more. It was light-hearted, playful, flirty, filled with inside jokes and little nicknames that clearly had history behind them. And attached at the bottom was a picture. The two of them, sitting close together at that same bar where she told me she was meeting friends tonight. Her head rested gently against his shoulder. Her smile, bright, genuine, full of warmth, was one I hadn't seen directed at me in what felt like forever. But it was the final line of the email that broke something inside me. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. Just tell him and get it over with. I love you. I stared at those words, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. All this time, I had held on to the belief that love was something unshakable, something built to weather storms. But now, reading that message, I realized how fragile it really was. How easily it could be shattered by dishonesty and selfishness. And then, a sharp knock at the bedroom door snapped me back. Jake? Open the door, Rachel called out, her voice tight, strained. Can we please just talk? After everything I'd just seen? I took a moment to breathe, steadying myself before I opened the door. She stood there, her face blotchy, eyes red and swollen like she'd been crying for hours. But as soon as she spotted the laptop in my hand, something shifted. Her face changed. Panic. What are you doing? She asked, her voice rising slightly, laced with fear. I looked her dead in the eye. Looking for the truth, I said. I did, I said flatly. And I found what I was looking for. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You went through my emails? She said, her voice rising with a mixture of shock and panic. That's a violation of my privacy. Privacy? I snapped, my voice finally cutting through the tension like a blade. You're worried about privacy now? After sneaking around with Brandon for months? After lying to my face every single day? She staggered back a step, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words, as if she were gasping for air. For once she had nothing ready. No excuse. No half-truth to spin. She was exposed. I didn't mean for it to happen, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. It just did. I blinked, stunned. That was her explanation. That's it. I asked, my voice hollow with disbelief. It just happened? I shook my head slowly. So what? You tripped and fell into his arms? Into his bed. Tears began pouring down her cheeks then, silent and hot. But I felt nothing. No empathy. No instinct to pull her in. She had made her decisions and now she had to stand in the wreckage. You called me pathetic, I said, more quietly now but no less firm. And maybe you were right. Maybe I was. Maybe I let you treat me like I didn't matter for far too long. But not anymore. I held out the laptop to her, the email still glowing on the screen. She took it reluctantly, and I watched as her face collapsed while reading those words, the digital proof of everything she couldn't deny anymore. Jake, please, she choked out, her voice breaking. Let's talk about this. We can fix it. I'll end it. I swear I'll end it with him. I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Rachel, it's already over, I said quietly. Not just with him. With us. Her legs gave out beneath her and she sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. But I didn't go to her. I didn't offer a hand or a shoulder. Her tears didn't move me. Not anymore. They came too late, after too much damage had already been done. I turned to leave the room, needing space from the weight of her grief. That's when my phone buzzed again. It was another message from that same unknown number. But this time, it wasn't just a text. It was a video. Cautious but curious, I tapped it open. The screen filled with grainy footage, Rachel and Brandon at the bar. The same night. But they weren't alone. There, just in the background, was another man. Sitting at the bar, phone in hand. He was filming them. The video ended abruptly, and a single line of text appeared over the black screen. There's more you need to see. Call me. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding, my mind running wild. Who was this person? Why were they watching Rachel and Brandon? And what else were they sitting on? Behind me, Rachel's sobs still echoed through the hallway like a distant storm. But my focus was already somewhere else. Something deeper was unraveling. That was the moment I realized, this wasn't over. Not even close. Everything I thought I knew about what Rachel had done, about the affair, about Brandon, it was just the surface. The lies ran deeper, the deception more twisted than I could have imagined. And now, somehow, the truth was clawing its way out, piece by piece. Questions started hammering at my mind. Who was this person messaging me? What did they know? Why were they reaching out now? Rachel was still crumpled on the floor behind me, her sobs echoing faintly like background noise. But I couldn't focus on her anymore. All I could see was the message on my phone. There's more you need to see. Call me. After a long pause, I tapped the number. My hands were shaking as the phone rang, the tension climbing with each unanswered tone. On the third ring, someone picked up. Jake. I'm glad you called, the voice said. Deep, steady, controlled, almost too calm. Who are you? I asked sharply. And how do you know about Rachel? Let's just say, he replied, I've been watching things unfold for a while now. You deserve the full story. Watching? I snapped. What does that even mean? Are you stalking her or something? It's not what you think, he said quickly, his tone turning careful. I'm a private investigator. I was hired to look into Brandon. Rachel, she got swept into it along the way. That stopped me cold. A private investigator? My stomach clenched. Who hired you? And why? I can't tell you that, he said, his voice firm. But what I can tell you is that Brandon isn't who he pretends to be. He's dangerous, Jake. And your wife. She's in way deeper than she realizes. I tried to wrap my head around his words. Dangerous. I repeated, stunned. Brandon? That smug guy who called me earlier and acted like I was beneath him? That guy. He's got a long history, the man explained. He's not just some guy having an affair. He's a professional con artist. He preys on married women, builds trust, isolates them, manipulates them emotionally, and then drains them. Financially. Mentally. Sometimes worse. Rachel isn't his first. And she won't be the last. It was like being hit in the chest. I staggered back a step, the weight of it all crashing down. Rachel wasn't just betraying me, she was being used. Lied to. Played. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me all this? Why are you telling me all this? I asked, still trying to catch up with everything he was saying. My mind was spinning and none of it felt real. Because I've seen how this story ends, he said, his voice turning grim. And it doesn't end well. Brandon will take everything from her, her money, her name, even her sense of safety. If there's even a part of you that still cares about her, you need to act. Now. A bitter, almost hollow laugh escaped my lips. Care about her? I repeated. She's been deceiving me for months, lying straight to my face. And now I'm supposed to save her? Brandon is methodical, the investigator warned. If he finds out you're onto him, he won't just disappear. He'll come after you, your finances, your reputation, your life. He's done it before. His words hit like a wave, and for a moment the room felt like it was tilting. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just a broken marriage. This was something much darker. Something calculated. Dangerous. So what do you want me to do? I finally asked. I'm sending you everything I've compiled on him, he said. Photos. Bank records. Statements from women he's conned before. It's all in the folder. Use it how you see fit. But one thing, don't confront him directly. Not yet. He's unpredictable when cornered. Before I could get another word in, the line went dead. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed with a new message, a link to a secure folder. My thumb hovered for a second before I tapped it open. The screen filled with files. Dozens of them. Photos. Documents. Videos. It was overwhelming. I scrolled through, heart pounding. There were images of Brandon with other women, taken in different cities. Some smiling, some unaware they were being watched. Financial records showed large transfers to hidden offshore accounts. I even found police reports, statements from past victims, each story echoing the next. Deception, manipulation, and destruction. Then I saw it. A photo taken earlier that very night. Rachel and Brandon outside the same bar. They were laughing, holding hands, looking every bit like a couple without a care in the world. It hit me all over again, but this time the betrayal felt like just the tip of the iceberg. This wasn't just about a marriage anymore. This was survival. I could hear movement downstairs now. Rachel's sobs had quieted. There were footsteps, soft but erratic, pacing across the living room floor. I closed the laptop, my hands still trembling, and walked out of the bedroom. She was there, arms folded tightly across her chest, pacing in circles like she didn't know where to go. When she saw me, her eyes were swollen and red. But behind the tears I saw something else, a flicker of resolve. Of defiance. Jake, she said, her voice raw but steady, we need to talk. She looked at me, her voice shaking. Jake, please. Oh, we're going to talk, I said, raising my phone slightly. But not until you see this first. I handed it to her, the screen still open to the folder the investigator had sent. This, I said quietly, this is what you've dragged us into. You didn't just betray our marriage, you invited a predator into our lives. And now, because of you, he's coming after me too. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes as she stared at the screen. But I didn't look away and I didn't let her off the hook. You need to tell me everything, I said, my voice firm but steady. How you met him. What he told you. What he promised. I need all of it. If we're going to stop this guy from hurting anyone else, or worse, I have to know what we're dealing with. She slowly nodded, her shoulders sagging like the weight of it all had finally sunk in. And in that moment, for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a flicker of the woman I had married. Not the stranger who had lied to me for months, but the woman who used to look at me with real remorse in her eyes. But remorse wasn't enough. Not anymore. It wasn't like that, she whispered, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks. At first it was innocent. He made me feel seen. Like I mattered. He knew what to say, how to listen. And then it just escalated. Escalated how? I asked, cold and unblinking. She paused, her eyes fixed on the floor. We started meeting up after work. Just for drinks at first. Then, it turned into other things. Other places. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Jake. I swear to you. I shook my head slowly. You didn't mean for it to go this far? Rachel, you were planning to leave me for him. Whatever sympathy I had left for her, it had dried up. Still, no matter how deeply she'd hurt me, I couldn't ignore what we were really up against. Brandon wasn't just a sleaze, he was dangerous. Calculated. And now we were both in the crosshairs. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice level. Here's what's going to happen, I said, each word deliberate. You're going to cut him off. Completely. No calls. No texts. No excuses. Do you understand me? She nodded quickly, her hands shaking. And you're going to tell me everything he said to you. Every promise. Every lie. Every detail you can remember. Because if we're going to get ahead of this, we don't get to leave anything out. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with, I said again, firmer this time. Rachel hesitated, her voice barely holding together as she began to speak. He said he wanted to stop us. That he'd handle it, she whispered, eyes darting away from mine. Handle it? I repeated, my voice cold, each syllable like ice. Was he threatening me? I don't know, she said, her voice cracking. He never came right out and said it, but the way he talked about you, it scared me, Jake. It really did. I clenched my fists at my sides. Anger surged through me, hotter than anything I'd felt before. Brandon had made one massive mistake. He thought I was weak. He thought I'd just take it. Let it slide. He underestimated me. All right, I said, my voice low and controlled. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. But we do it my way. Rachel looked at me, eyes wide, suddenly pale. What are you going to do? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Somewhere deep inside, I already knew exactly what had to be done. The next few hours were focused and deliberate. Rachel and I, still barely speaking beyond what was necessary, sat down with the investigator and put together a plan. It was simple but sharp. I'd play the part of the clueless, heartbroken husband. The guy just looking for peace. I'd message Brandon, pretending to want to talk man to man, settle things quietly. Meanwhile, the investigator would continue digging, pulling together more dirt. More proof. Enough to make sure we had the full picture of who Brandon really was, and enough to bring him down if he tried anything. By the time the plan was in place, something inside me had shifted. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt focused. This wasn't about saving my marriage. That ship had already sailed. This was about reclaiming my life. About making sure Brandon paid for every word he'd twisted, every lie he'd told, and every scar he left behind. As I sat down and began typing the message I would send him, I glanced across the room. Rachel was sitting on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands, clearly hoping I'd talk to her. But I had nothing left to say. Not yet. I hit send. And the moment I did, a cold clarity settled over me. Brandon didn't know it yet, but his games were over. Less than an hour later, he responded. Just like I thought, his message was smug, dismissive. He played it cool, like none of this mattered, like he was already 10 steps ahead. But what he didn't realize was, we weren't playing anymore. The hours leading up to the meeting felt endless. Tense. Quiet. Rachel drifted around the house, trying to bridge a silence that wasn't hers to fix. I kept my distance. She'd made her decisions. Now she had to live with them. At exactly 7:30, I grabbed my jacket and my keys, the cool metal feeling steady in my hand. As I moved toward the door, Rachel stood blocking the entryway, her expression unsure, almost fragile. Jake, just be careful, she said quietly. "I'll be fine," I replied without hesitation, and walked past her without looking back. The bar was dim just like I remembered, low lighting, murmured conversations, and the steady rhythm of clinking glasses. The investigator was already there, seated in the far corner, subtly adjusting a small recorder hidden beneath the table. Then I spotted him. Brandon sat casually, drink in hand, as if none of the damage he'd caused mattered. I approached, calm but deliberate, and sat down across from him. "So," I started, keeping my tone neutral, "you and Rachel, is that it? Or are there more?" His smirk faltered slightly, but he tried to play it off. "I don't know what you mean." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder. "These women do," I said flatly, turning the screen toward him. There they were: photos, transaction records, police reports. Names. Faces. Evidence. His eyes darted to the phone, then back up at me. And for the first time, I saw something that wasn't arrogance in his face. It was fear. He glanced around the bar, almost instinctively, like he was looking for an escape route. His voice dropped, suddenly quiet. "You should watch your step, Jake," he said slowly. "You don't want to get caught in something bigger than you can handle." But it was already too late, for him. The investigator gave me a subtle nod from across the room. Everything had been recorded. Every word. It was just a matter of time. 2 days later I got the call. "We got him," the investigator said, his voice firm. "Already?" I asked, stunned. "He got sloppy," he explained. "Authorities flagged some of his financial activity. They arrested him this morning. His apartment was full of fake IDs, offshore account info, everything." I let out a slow breath, the weight of it all finally beginning to lift. Brandon was out of our lives. As for Rachel, she was unraveling. She spent most of her time in the guest room, barely speaking, barely eating. The public fallout wasn't kind. Even though she hadn't done anything criminal, her connection to Brandon brought her unwanted attention. The whispers. The looks. Eventually she made the choice to leave. She moved to another city, hoping to rebuild. Start fresh. I didn't stop her. One evening, a few months later, I found myself back at that same bar. The place where I'd confronted the man who tried to tear everything apart. I sat in the same seat, ordered a quiet drink, and let the moment settle. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt peace. Not bitterness. Not rage. Just peace. I had faced betrayal, lies, manipulation. I'd been dragged through something darker than I ever expected. But I made it through. And I came out the other side stronger. Brandon was gone. Rachel was no longer a part of my life. And me? I was finally free.